Toyota just put its badge on a car with a BYD engine underneath it. 80 years of refusing outside help, trusting nobody. That Toyota just dropped BYD's battery and motor under its own hood. And everyone's calling it surrender. The king of hybrids folding to the rival that grew 41% last year, while Toyota's own hybrid sales dropped by double digits. But Toyota isn't losing. It bought a $24,000 shortcut, and it's spending that saved time on a battery that could make BYD's own tech look outdated by 2028. The deal that shouldn't exist. Let's start with the basics, because on paper, this partnership makes zero sense. Toyota and BYD are not friends. They are not casual competitors bumping into each other at a trade show. They are two of the biggest car companies on the planet, fighting tooth and nail for the exact same customers in the exact same market, China. The largest, most brutal, most fast-moving car market in the world. And yet, back in 2019, these two rivals sat down and formed a joint venture called BYD Toyota EV Technology Company. 50-50 ownership, shared research, shared development. Two companies that should be enemies, quietly building cars together behind closed doors. The clearest proof this actually works sits in China right now, rolling off dealer lots. It's called the Toyota BZ3. It's a clean, conservative-looking sedan with a Toyota badge on the hood. But pop the hood, or better yet, look underneath, and you'll find BYD's Blade battery and BYD's electric motor doing all the heavy lifting. Toyota wrapped its own body styling, its own suspension tuning, and decades of quality control around a power system built by the company it's supposed to be beating. Here's the number that makes this real. The BZ3 starts at roughly 169,800 yuan. That's about $24,000 US. For a Toyota badged EV, that is an aggressive, almost uncomfortable price point. Buyers get to pick between a 49.9 or 65.3 kilowatt-hour Blade battery pack, delivering somewhere between 517 and 616 kilometers of range on China's testing cycle. And when it's time to charge, this thing goes from 30 to 80% in just 27 minutes. Now, those numbers alone are solid, respectable, not earth-shattering. What's earth-shattering is what those numbers represent. Toyota didn't spend 5 years and billions of dollars building an EV platform from scratch. It took technology that was already proven, already validated, already trusted by millions of Chinese drivers, wrapped it in Toyota engineering discipline, and shipped a competitive product in a fraction of the usual development time. That's not desperation, that's speed. And in an industry where speed is suddenly the difference between staying relevant and getting left behind, speed might be the most valuable currency there is. So the real question isn't, why is Toyota doing this? The real question is, what happened to Toyota that made this the smart move? Because 3 years ago, this deal would have been unthinkable. To understand that, we've got to talk about what China's EV market did to the entire auto industry, Toyota included, the market that moved faster than anyone could adapt. For decades, Toyota built its empire on total control. The Toyota production system became the textbook every other manufacturer on the planet studied and tried to copy. And when it came to electrification, Toyota didn't chase pure EVs the way everyone expected. It bet on hybrids. The Prius made Toyota synonymous with fuel efficiency long before EV was even a mainstream word. Toyota was patient, methodical, and frankly a little skeptical that the world was ready to go all in on batteries. Then China stopped waiting. New energy vehicles, that's the umbrella term covering full EVs and plug-in hybrids, crossed 50% of total new car sales in China. Think about that for a second. More than half of every new car sold in the world's biggest auto market is now electrified in some form. Combustion engines and traditional hybrids started losing ground fast, and I mean fast. Toyota and Volkswagen both watched their gas and hybrid sales drop somewhere between 15 and 20% in just 12 to 18 months. That's not a slow fade. That's the ground shifting underneath an entire industry in the span of a single product cycle. For Toyota, the message was blunt and impossible to ignore. Adapt right now or get pushed out of the most important car market on earth. And here's what makes this genuinely fascinating. Toyota isn't some scrambling latecomer trying to catch up out of panic. This is the company that quite literally wrote the modern manual on manufacturing discipline. Every other automaker on the planet has spent decades studying Toyota's playbook. And even Toyota's own playbook had no answer for how fast China's EV transition was moving. When the company that invented lean manufacturing gets caught flat-footed by market speed, that's not a small admission. That's a signal the entire industry's rulebook just got rewritten, and nobody was exempt. So Toyota faced a brutal, unavoidable choice, and it comes down to the single most expensive part of any electric vehicle: the battery. In an EV, the battery isn't just a component sitting under the floor. It's often 30 to 40% of the entire production cost of the car. Get that number wrong, and your profit margin disappears before you've sold a single unit. So Toyota had two options: build its own battery supply chain from the ground up, or find a partner who already solved the problem. Building from scratch meant billions of dollars in capital. It meant years spent locking down lithium, nickel, and cobalt supply contracts around the world. It meant a manufacturing learning curve measured in years, not months. None of that happens overnight, and none of it happens cheap. And Toyota didn't have years to spare. Every quarter spent building a battery ecosystem from scratch was another quarter of watching local Chinese competitors ship new EVs while Toyota was still negotiating raw material deals. Time, not money, was the real constraint here. And time is the one thing no amount of cash can manufacture. That mismatch, that impossible math, is exactly what pushed Toyota toward a partner who had already cracked the code on batteries. And that partner just happened to be its biggest rival. Inside the blade, why Toyota trusted its enemy. To understand why Toyota specifically chose BYD, you need to understand what BYD actually is. And here's the part that surprises a lot of people. BYD didn't start as a car company at all. BYD was founded in 1995, and it began by making batteries for cell phones. It only expanded into automobiles years later. That origin story matters more than it sounds like it should, because it means BYD controls its battery production completely in-house, from raw cell to finished pack. That's called vertical integration, and it gives BYD something almost no rival on the planet can match: tight cost control and the ability to improve its technology fast without waiting on outside suppliers. Now let's talk chemistry for a second, because this is where the real engineering story lives. Most premium EVs on the road today lean on something called NMC batteries: nickel, manganese, and cobalt. Those pack in more energy density, which sounds great, but they come at a cost. They're expensive to build, and they carry a real risk of something called thermal runaway. In plain English, when they can fail violently. BYD went a completely different direction. They built around LFP, lithium iron phosphate, cheaper raw materials, a far more stable chemistry, a longer usable lifespan measured in thousands of charge cycles, and critically, no dependence on scarce, expensive, geopolitically messy metals like cobalt. Then there's the design that actually gives the battery its name. Instead of stacking bulky battery modules with wasted air gaps between them, BYD engineers arranged long, thin battery cells like literal blades packed directly into the battery pack. No wasted intermediate module stage. Just cells packed tight, like blades in a drawer. That single structural trick boosts volumetric energy density by roughly 50% compared to a traditional LFP pack, while cutting bulk and improving overall efficiency. Put those two advantages together: cheaper chemistry, smarter structural design, and the numbers speak for themselves. The blade battery holds up for more than 3,000 charge cycles. That's equivalent to over 1.2 million kilometers of driving before you'd see meaningful battery degradation. And because it skips nickel and cobalt entirely, it costs roughly 20 to 30% less to produce than an equivalent NMC pack. For a company like Toyota, a company that is obsessed, almost religiously, with cost discipline and safety in equal measure, that combination isn't just attractive. It's close to unbeatable. And if you want to see exactly why Toyota's engineers signed off on this technology, you need to know about the nail penetration test. It is the single most brutal stress test in the battery industry. Engineers take a live, fully charged battery cell and drive a metal nail straight through it. A standard NMC battery, punctured that way, spikes past 500 degrees Celsius almost instantly and erupts into a violent, uncontrollable fire. BYD's Blade battery, under that exact same test, holds a stable surface temperature between just 30 and 60 degrees Celsius. No smoke, no explosion, nothing. For Toyota, a company whose entire global brand is built on one single word: reliability. That result matters more than any spec sheet, any horsepower number, any range figure. A battery that survives being physically punctured without turning into a fire hazard is the one thing that lets Toyota put its badge on the hood without flinching. That's the technology Toyota decided to build around. Now let's talk about what this partnership actually looks like in practice and why it isn't a one-way street. Co-opetition. Why both sides are winning this deal. Here's where the old rule book for the auto industry officially stops applying. Toyota and BYD are direct competitors, fighting over the exact same buyers in the exact same market, and yet here they are, co-developing technology together. There's actually a word for this. Call it co-opetition. Rivals cooperating because pure, isolated rivalry is no longer survivable on its own. Staying locked in strict silos, refusing to work with a competitor on principle alone, is a luxury no automaker can afford anymore. And here's the part people miss. This deal isn't charity from BYD's side either. Partnering with Toyota validates BYD as a genuine Tier 1 global technology supplier, not just a domestic Chinese car maker with a huge home market advantage, but a company that a legacy giant like Toyota is willing to build cars with. That kind of validation is worth more to BYD's global reputation than almost any marketing campaign money could buy. It also lets BYD monetize its own manufacturing capacity. By selling battery and motor technology to an outside customer like Toyota, BYD turns spare production capacity into a brand new revenue stream instead of letting expensive factory capacity sit idle. So when you strip away the surface-level headlines, this isn't a story about one company bailing out another. This is two companies with very different strengths. One dominant in battery technology, the other dominant in brand trust and engineering discipline, recognizing that combining those strengths gets them both further, faster, than fighting each other in isolation ever could. Now, does that mean Toyota has quietly given up on being an engineering leader? That's the question skeptics keep raising online, and honestly, it's a fair one. But the more accurate read here is pragmatism over pride. Sacrificing a slice of self-sufficiency in the short term is a small price to pay for staying relevant in the most competitive car market on the planet. Because here's what's happening quietly behind the scenes while the BZ3 rolls off the production line. Toyota is pouring resources into next-generation solid-state battery technology, targeting a commercial launch somewhere between 2027 and 2028. The target specs on this thing are honestly staggering. A driving range beyond 1,000 kilometers, with fast charging that adds most of that range back in just 10 minutes. Solid-state batteries promise faster charging, longer range, and even bigger safety margins than today's best lithium chemistry, and Toyota has spent years quietly positioning itself as one of the leaders in that exact race. So here's the real strategy, laid out step by step, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Step 1. Use BYD's proven technology to survive the immediate EV wave in China right now, without burning years chasing a battery supply chain from zero. Step 2. Keep the cash flowing in from a global hybrid business that BYD and most Chinese rivals simply don't have. Toyota sells more than 3.4 million hybrid vehicles worldwide every single year, generating billions in net cash flow that funds all of this without ever putting the company at financial risk. Step 3. Funnel that hybrid cash into the technological leap that could put Toyota back in front of the entire industry once solid-state batteries are ready for mass production. This isn't Toyota admitting defeat. This is Toyota buying itself the runway to win later on its own terms instead of being forced to fight today's battle with tomorrow's unfinished technology. All right, before we go any further, if this kind of deep dive breakdown is your kind of content, now's the time to hit that like button, drop a comment telling us what car story we should cover next, subscribe if you haven't already, and tap that notification bell so you never miss when we drop the next one. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and we've got a lot more of these coming. Now, let's talk about what this actually means for you, sitting here in America. What this means for the rest of the industry, and for you. Here's the bigger lesson buried inside this one partnership, and it goes way beyond just Toyota and BYD. Supply chain flexibility has quietly replaced absolute self-sufficiency as the real competitive edge in this industry. The automakers still clinging to the old idea that everything must be built entirely in-house, out of pride, are the ones most likely to get left behind. The ones willing to borrow, partner, and adapt are the ones still standing when the dust finally settles on this whole EV transition. And you can already see this pattern rippling outward. BYD isn't just working with Toyota. They've got joint ventures and technology partnerships forming across the industry, supplying batteries and platform technology to multiple global automakers who need to move fast and can't afford to build everything from scratch. The wall a lot of American car buyers picture, BYD over there in China, and the American car industry completely separate over here. That wall is a lot blurrier than it looks. BYD technology is already working its way into supply chains that eventually touch cars sold right here in the States, even if you'll never see a BYD badge on a dealer lot in your town. So what does this mean if you're sitting here in America, wondering if any of this actually affects you? A few things. First, this kind of partnership accelerates the entire EV price war globally. When a legacy giant like Toyota can build a competitive EV faster and cheaper by partnering instead of reinventing the wheel, that pressure ripples outward to every automaker competing for the same buyers, including the ones selling to you. Every dollar Toyota saves by not building a battery supply chain from scratch is a dollar that can go toward keeping prices competitive, funding better tech, or accelerating that solid-state battery breakthrough that could genuinely change what an EV feels like to own. Second, watch what happens once solid-state batteries hit the market around 2027 to 2028. If Toyota's bet pays off, that 1,000-kilometer range with a 10-minute top-up isn't just a spec sheet flex. That's the kind of leap that could finally kill range anxiety for good, the same way this BYD partnership is buying Toyota the time and cash flow to get there without risking the whole company. Third, and maybe most important, this deal is proof that the days of automakers treating each other as pure enemies are over. Ford, GM, Toyota, Volkswagen, BYD, every single one of them is going to have to decide, sooner rather than later, whether pride is worth losing the race over. And based on what we just watched Toyota do, the smart money says pride loses every time. So let's go back to where we started. A Toyota-badged sedan, gliding through the streets of a Chinese city with a heart built by its fiercest rival beating underneath the hood. At first glance, that looked like humiliation, proof that the most self-reliant automaker on Earth had finally been forced to its knees by Chinese engineering. But that's not what we found once we actually pulled back the curtain. What we found was a company playing a longer, smarter game than almost anyone gave it credit for. Toyota didn't surrender its engineering pride. It rented time. It bought itself years of breathing room in the world's toughest market, funded by a hybrid business nobody else can match, all while quietly building toward a solid-state battery that could put it back in front of the entire industry. And BYD didn't just bail out a rival for goodwill. It walked away from this deal as a validated, Tier 1 global technology supplier, sitting at the table with one of the most respected names in automotive history. Two rivals, two completely different strengths. One deal that makes both of them stronger, faster than fighting each other ever could have. So here's the question worth sitting with after everything we just covered. Is this partnership the smartest move Toyota has made in a decade? Or is it the very first crack in an empire that once refused to depend on anyone but itself? Honestly, that question doesn't have one clean answer, and that's exactly why this story is worth paying attention to. We are watching, in real time, the old rules of the auto industry get rewritten. Self-sufficiency used to be the flex. Now, adaptability is. The company willing to borrow a rival's best weapon, swallow a little pride, and use every advantage available to it. That's the company that's going to be standing when this entire EV transition finally settles. That's what this channel is all about. We're not here to just throw specs at you and move on. We want to help you actually understand what's happening underneath the hood of this industry. The strategy, the money, the engineering, the decisions that shape what you'll be driving 5 and 10 years from now. So if you learned something today, or if this changed the way you're thinking about where the car industry is headed, do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me which side you're on. Is this Toyota being brilliant or Toyota being backed into a corner? I read every single one, and I want to hear your take. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you catch our next breakdown the moment it drops. And if you want to keep going down this rabbit hole right now, click on the video on your screen where we dig even deeper into how BYD went from an obscure battery startup to a company legacy automakers are begging to partner with. Thanks for riding along with us today. I'll see you in the next one.